Hosted by Mike, the Big Cheese.
Brian, how are you? This is Mike.
Hey, how's it going, man?
I'm going great, man. How are you today? Happy New Year.
Yeah, same to you.
Hey, listen, I have to oh, yeah. I have to tell you, I read your book last month, and it stuck with me so much I went through it a second time this week.
All right.
Absolutely incredible story. I mean, this is stuff that maybe couldn't even be fiction if you wouldn't believe it or not. When I heard the title of the book, I was like, that's really funny, until I read the book and realized what you meant by it. And that old joke was something that was very serious in your life.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think we lost the connection a little bit. You're back.
I said it's still funny.
I'm glad you can look at it that way, because, when you think about it in the big picture, it's who you are now that matters, not what you started out as, and it's like that for most of us, but it's just such a brutally honest book, and what I love is that you make no excuses for anything that you've done, or for anything anybody else has done around you. You just own up to it and live it.
Yeah, well, that's what you gotta do.
Well, I mean, kind of going back to the beginning, I'm reading it, and, Joe Elliott talks about how you felt like he ignored you in that first story, Def Leppard. Then you have shit to say about Ross Halfin. And then when you think about it, all these years later, these are probably some of your closest friends, the people you grew really close to in time. But when you first met them, there were issues. And I think that's like that for a lot of people.
What's that?
I was saying in the book, Joe Elliott talks about how you felt like he ignored you, like on the first tour with the band. Then you talk about the photo shoot with Ross Halfin and how he was kind of like an ass. And then later on you read that these are people that became really close to you over the years and considered very good friends.
Yeah, it's funny how things like that happen, right?
Yeah. You think it's like that because maybe you're more alike than apart, and that's why, you feel that a little bit there, then you realize to grow and, know who each other are? No, I was saying, do you think it's because sometimes the people you dislike the most in the beginning is because they're more like you than they're not, and then you realize that there's a common ground as time goes on?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, that's what it seems like. And, thinking about everything in here, I was like, you talk about so many things, and, it starts with Chris Cornell, and, it kind of ends that way, too. And I don't want to tell everybody about everything in the book. I want people to buy it and read it for themselves. But as I'm going through the book, I was saying, I wonder if Brian ever thought about the same things that went through Chris Cornell's mind or Chris Bennington's mind, where they committed suicide. And then you read that last chapter.
I never contemplated suicide, but I do say in the book that at a certain point, I understood how someone could.
Yeah.
Before I couldn't.
Yeah, and that comes out at the very end, which, people read when they get to that part. And, you kind of go back to the beginning of Tesla. You guys have been together, at least you and Frank, since the early 80s, under many different names. You get signed to Geffen Records, and you're still City Kid at the time. And when I read into that, it feels like there were a lot of people with their hands in the pot back then, maybe trying to direct the band on which way to go, how to sound, and what to do. When the band formed, even as City Kid, because really the only thing that changed was the name. I mean, did you have a direction on where you wanted the band to go and sound like, or did you take a lot of lead from the people that were kind of guiding the band back then?
In the early days, I think Tom Zutat was pretty instrumental in, saying, look, you could sound like this if you wanted to, because we kind of didn't know. We had our foot in one side and we were kind of straddling it, and he was the one that kind of directed us more towards that honest blues-based rock and roll thing that we do.
Most bands when they get together, it's usually a couple of friends. They want to just, write music, party, get up on stage, have a good time. I don't know if a lot of them think about the business part of it, the commercial aspect of it. I mean, is that why it was important to get guidance from other people on where to go? Did you feel like, hey, listen, this music isn't really what all of us are into. There were 5 guys in this band, but we're going to do it anyway because this is what's going to take us to the next level?
No, we were all music. We didn't calculate it like that. Just when you first start out, you're trying to find who you are, and once we did, it just happened to click, and then it connected. But we didn't go, well, we'll play this music because this will make us famous. I mean.
Yeah, well, when you get into music, I mean, the hope is, you'll have bands like Metallica who from day one swore, the anti-establishment.
Are you talking into a mic or into a phone?
I'm talking into a mic through the phone, yes.
Okay, yeah, because it just sounds like.
Oh, that's probably the Brooklyn part of me.
It's just really hard to understand what you're saying.
Yeah,
Can you try talking a little slower too?
Yeah, let me take the mic out and try with something different.
Yeah, like just talking to the phone or something.
Well, we're trying to record it through the switchboard because we're not allowed into the studios these days with everything going on with the COVID.
Oh, okay, yeah, it's just, unfortunately, it's really hard to understand what you're saying, man.
Yeah, no problem, Brian, no problem. What I was saying is that, a lot of bands have that direction going in, some don't. Some bands just want to get into it, for the fun and have a good time, and they need that direction, they need that guidance that comes with, people from the outside. And like I said, you guys were young, you were starting out, and that's what you wanted. And then you have bands like Metallica from day one that said, we're not in this to become famous, we're going to do it our own way, but yet they kind of did in a way, follow direction to get to where they were. Everybody has their own things that they have to do to get to where they were. Nobody wants to be a musician and get into a band, not to be famous and not to get rich and not to play in front of a large audience. Nobody wants to play for 10 people in a club. That's what the point I'm trying to get at is that, you do this to become famous.
No, of course you don't want to. I mean, look, you pick up a guitar because you want to be a rock star.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the bottom line. That's the truth.
Yeah, well, absolutely. And you guys did that. And you talk about like the point that you had to do to get there. I mean, going back to the first record, trying to find people to work with you and produce you. But then you also had like, Peter and Cliff, two very well-known people. I mean, I don't know how well they were known back then. They had a lot of people under their belt back then, but you had them helping you out and moving you along. Was that integral to like, where the band got at that point in time and where they made you go?
Absolutely integral. It wouldn't happen without Peter and Cliff. I mean, Peter and Cliff, they were the biggest managers there are now. They were really big back then, so they definitely helped us get to where we got.
Yeah.
No doubt about it.
Yeah, and for people that know them and know how they work, they're very strong personalities, very, commandeering personalities. I mean, does that cause friction within a band? Because you also have 5 young guys who think they kind of own the world. They're signed to a major label. You're putting out a record, and you have to take direction from a lot of different people. Where most bands want to stand up and say, "No, it's our way or the highway." Is there like a middle ground where you like kind of let the ego down a little bit to say, "Let's see what they have to say and what they have to do"?
Well, I think in the beginning we took direction really well, and then in the end we didn't. We just kind of decided that we were going to do what we wanted to do, and that's and that's when we broke up in the end. And by that point, we had been very successful. But I think the truth of the matter is, in the beginning, we were more apt to take direction from people, and then by Psychotic Supper, we're going to just do what we wanted to do because we were successful. And I think, it was hard for Peter and Cliff, who were trying to make suggestions and stuff.
Well, you talk about Psychotic Supper, a little bit of a departure from the first 2 records, but I think it's one of the band's strongest records. I mean, I guess there were a lot of changes taking place around the late 80s, early 90s within the group and within music in general. I mean, did that have an effect on that album? And newfound independence of being more assertive?
Yeah, well, we were asserting ourselves on that album, absolutely. We had 3 successful albums. We had Mechanical Resonance, Great Radio Controversy, and 5-Man Acoustic Jam. So by the time we got to Psychotic Supper, we had 2 top 10 singles. So at that point, we were like, look, this is how we're going to do it. More so than, this is how you're going to do it. This is more like how we're going to do it, is how it became.
Yeah. Well, I guess it gets to a point in any band's career where you have to kind of get that way and kind of, stand up for yourselves.
Well, it happens with every band.
Yeah.
I mean, every band that becomes successful, after a while, they do what they want to do because they have a brand and they've established themselves as an entity, and they can, do what they want to do. And then, if you're still successful, then you can keep doing it. If you become less successful, then maybe you're going the wrong way.
Yeah, you mentioned a lot of people in this book over the years that you've worked with, from managers to lawyers to record company people, personnel, people that were working within the band. I mean, was there any one person that you thought really hurt the band more than anybody else, and that you just, they had to go?
Well, I don't know, man. That's a tough question. Hurt the band. Everyone tried to, that ever worked with us, tried with their best interests. Tried with the good intentions. I wouldn't say anyone ever really hurt the band. I mean, that's a hard question. I mean, what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I get it, but sometimes there's that one person that doesn't have the best interest of the band in mind, and they kind of work against the machine to kind of set it off,
Yeah, I mean, look, many people have come and gone that have worked with Tesla, and everyone at a certain time, it was good and harmonious, and there are times when it didn't get harmonious, and they left. So, but I wouldn't say there's one person that really tried to hurt the band.
Yeah. It seems like from day one with the band, you talk about you were kind of always the point man, and everybody went to you and through you for a lot of stuff. And every band has to have that one person. But does resentment build up within the band when something like that happens? Because you'll have members that really don't want to know anything that's going on. Just want to be told, here, you go here tonight, we're playing here, we're doing this, we're doing that, and they love that because all that bullshit from behind the scenes is taken away from them. They don't have to worry about it. But everything was everything like just kind of put on you, or did you want to step into that role so at least you knew what was happening and going on within the group?
Well, I was that guy. I don't know how I became that guy, but I did become that guy. And there's a couple of guys that used to rib me and say I was the manager's boy.
Yeah.
Like they were the boss, and I was their boy. Because, they would come to me and they'd say, we think you should do this and this. And I'd go to the band and say, Peter and Clue think we should do this and this. And they'd say, well, we don't want to do that, And I'd say, well, I think we should. I think we should listen to them. And then, I was the manager's boy.
Yeah. Do you think it was more of the drugs and the stuff that was taking place within the band at the time? Because you talk about how a lot of the other guys were doing a lot of stuff long before you were, and then you kind of got into the mix a little later on to everything. Do you think that was the inner workings that was the downfall of the band, or was it the change in the music scene in the early to mid-'90s, or was it a combination of just everything where the band had to kind of end?
I think it was a combination of everything. I think you had drugs and alcohol, you had the change in the music scene, you had the fact that we've been going non-stop since, 1982 or whatever it was when we first started in the clubs. And, we needed a break, and that's the only way we got a break was to break up. So, and it wound up being a 4-year break and a 4.5-year break, and then we got back together. At the time, we were pretty clouded, but I think it's the best thing that happened to the band was breaking up, because we've been back together now 21 years.
Yeah.
So it was a good thing, in the end, when you look at it, much later down the road. At the time, we thought it was horrible, and, it was the end of the world, but, we needed a break. We needed to sit down and get our priorities straight as to what we were trying to do.
Yeah.
And it took that to make that happen.
Yeah, when a band breaks up, especially a band at the level that Tesla was at, all the work that goes into getting there, it can either go two ways, where you feel like a sigh of relief that it's finally over because of everything that's been going on, or that kind of heartbreak where you say, I invested my whole life into this, and this is who I am and what I do. It can go either way. And when I read the book, I think it was probably one of the last times you talked about, Tommy and Troy getting into a fist fight backstage. I mean, it seems like there was a lot of them over the years with that last one, and you guys were just like, we didn't even break it up. You said like we just watched it happen, and it's sort of like
that was
and it's sort of like Nero on top of the mountain watching Rome burn while he plays the fiddle. Did you know then that this was kind of it?
Well, yeah, they were going at it. Me and Frank just kind of sat there and ate ice cream cones and was like watching, Friday Night at the Fights or something,
Yeah. and one of the big topics in your book is, you bat with, your health and depression and anxiety and stuff like that. And a lot of people probably don't see that or realize it, when they see pictures of Tesla over the years and videos, like these guys are at the top of their game, they're at the top of the world, they're famous. They don't realize what goes on behind the scenes. And this book really shows that and exposes that. Do you think these things something they go back to your childhood, to your youth, that you had it back then, but you just maybe didn't know what it was or how to deal with it at that point in time, and it manifested over the years?
Absolutely. Yeah, I did have it when I was in my youth, but I didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
So, who knows what causes it? And really how to cure it. You just try to deal with it on a day-to-day basis. And, in the book, I just kind of wanted people to realize or, see that, we're just like them.
Yeah, I think you do.
We sing songs and play concerts for a living, but we have everyday problems just like any other human being does on the planet.
No, that's true, but I think people that are famous, well-known, have money, don't experience that. That doesn't.
Well, money
doesn't take away.
Money, just because you have money, it doesn't cure all. It's not a cure-all.
Yeah.
I mean, it means you can go buy, a new car if you want, but you can still be depressed, or you can still have colitis, or you could still, have insecurities, or whatever the case may be, or you can still have anxiety. Having money, if anything, I think, adds more stress and pressure to your life, because then people think you're rich and famous, and then you get, all kinds of people coming at you for this, that, and the other, and that adds a whole other dimension of anxiety to you.
Yeah, and you do talk about that in the book, where family members have come to you over the years, with those kind of things, and how you've kind of dealt with it. I mean, so one thing when a friend comes around, but when your family does it, it must make it even harder on you. And you're in a business where you talk about your autoimmune and the colitis, and that it's brought on by a lot of stress. And I'm like, wow, what a business to be in when you got to deal with stress.
Oh, right, exactly, right.
Holy
cow! It's a stressful business, but I think any job can be stressful. And, people have stress in their life. It doesn't matter if you're in a rock and roll band. You can be the postman and have stress in your life. So, and that's what I'm trying to say is that, just because you're in a rock band, you're not exempt from that.
Yeah. A postman gets up every day, goes to work Monday to Friday, and gets the same paycheck every week. He kind of knows. But when you're in a band, a musical band, you live and die like from album to album, tour to tour. Does there ever come like a time and place where you feel so secure in what you're doing in the music business that you could just go to bed at night with a clear head and say, I know what's going to happen tomorrow, I know what's going to go on, next month or next year, here's where we're going to be, here's what we're going to do? Or is there always that worry about, are we going to be relevant tomorrow? Are we going to be able to, put another tour together next year? Does that ever come into play?
Yeah, it always comes into play. I mean, it's an intangible business, the music business. Because, like you said, if you're a postman, you have a set pay and a set schedule. And in a rock band, you don't. Look, if you put it on an album, you don't sell any, you don't make any money. You book concerts and no one comes, you don't make any money. And then you don't got any concerts to book anymore. So it is always, you're always on the edge of your seat.
That's true. You talk about like running into a few people over the years in the business, and the story with David Lee Roth. I mean, was he that stereotypical of what they considered a rock star to be back in the day when you guys were out with him, or do you think it was more of an act?
I don't know if it's an act or that's who he is, but it was. That's what I saw. When we were there, it's like. When David was walking down the hall, if you were walking down the hall in the arena, his security guy, this guy Eddie Anderson, would say, we were told to go into, a room, the closest room, and just, don't stop
Yeah, you talk about a lot of the absurdities that come with the business and stories like that. I mean, was that something you personally tried to avoid as a musician, to your fans and to other people that you work with over the years and the band in general?
I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't make people get out of the way if I was walking down the hall.
Yeah.
I mean, and then I think I say we're Poison tried to do the same thing, and I told them, "Fuck you, I ain't getting thrown out of the hall."
So there's a pecking order in there, and there's a pecking order. David Lee Roth, you get out of the hall.
Well, it was like with David Lee Roth, we were rookies.
Yeah.
It was our rookie year. By the time we were on tour with Poison, we were stars. We were a star player. We weren't fucking moving.
That's true. And I love how you talk about the Beatles throughout the book. How what a fan you are, and what influence, and the story about when you were in England and you wanted to meet Paul McCartney and they wouldn't help you out, and you saw him in a window of a building, and he came down to say hello to you. And I think about that. And then I read another part of the book where you're saying, when it came to fan meet and greet, you meet up with fans, sometimes you just weren't in the mood. You were a little grumpy with them. I mean, and I get that. I could put, especially when you don't feel when things aren't going right. You can get that way. But think about if that would have happened to you when Paul McCartney came down. Would it have been devastating when your heroes treated you differently?
Yeah. It would have. And I have to remember that.
Yeah.
And I have to, when I'm out there and I'm not feeling good and I get short with a fan or say, look, I got to consciously make an effort and tell myself, hey, and so I try to be the best I can, but then again, there are days I'm only human.
Yeah, I know.
And, and I'm sure there are days that Paul McCartney, he was in a good mood that day,
Yeah, but that's some story, like how he would come down, especially at the level that Paul McCartney was. It just goes to show you the kind of person that some people could be,
Yeah, well, he's still that same level. On the 8th day, God created Paul McCartney.
That's so
he ain't lost nothing. He had a #1 record last week.
I know, that's incredible. All these decades.
78 years old.
That's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, speaking of last record, Shock, which is, now it's almost 2 years old, we're in 2021 now. What a strong record that was, working with Phil Collins on that record. I mean, all the records since the band came back have been, each one has been standalone, on its own. It's Tesla, but it's a different kind of Tesla. Was it intentional to kind of try to change up a little bit of who the band was when you reunited and got back together?
Yeah, we wanted to be relevant and current, so, we were trying to keep, the hardcore fans happy and try to do some new things to encourage some new listeners to enjoy Tesla. With Shock, that was definitely a conscious effort to work with Phil and try some things that, we had never tried in our career because we had said no to them. And that record was kind of like saying, well, let's try these things and, don't be so, take the blinders off a bit, if you will. And, I enjoyed making that record. I think the record was really, really good. A lot of people liked it and a lot of people hated it. I got a lot of, people said it sounded too much like Def Leppard and he wimped us out and, this, that, and the other. And it's like, hey, man, you can't make the same record over and over again. You got to try to do some new things. So I think, in time, people go back and look at that, and the people that don't like it and say, well, maybe it wasn't, and find that they might find some things on there that they do like,
True. If you go back to even Into the Now, every record was like that in its own way, and each one was great for what it was. Time changes. This is not the 80s anymore. You've had 20, 30 years of other musical influences coming into your lives, and to be stagnant and say, well, we just got to rewrite, Mechanical Renaissance again. That as a musician, I think that would be kind of devastating to never move out of that little hole that you're always in, or people want you to be in, because you don't get to experiment any. So I could definitely see it and get it. And I think it was a solid album from start to finish. And to me, Tesla is always going to sound like Tesla no matter what you do.
Well, that's what I say. As soon as Jeff sings, it sounds like Tesla.
True. Yeah. Even Signs, if you go back to Signs, it was a cover song, probably one of your biggest songs ever. If I played that for somebody like, oh, it's Tesla, they don't even remember who the original band was. You guys took it and owned it.
Right. No, it's true.
And that's a hard thing to do when you cover somebody else's song, is to make it your own. And you guys did it with that song, so I think that's, it says a lot about what you guys are musically.
Yeah. Well, thank you, buddy.
All right, no problem. It was great talking to you, Brian. I'm not going to keep you because I know you have these things to do all day long, and people are going to ask you the same questions for the next couple of hours, so I'll give you a little break in between them all. But it was a pleasure talking to you today. This book is fantastic, man. The Son of a Milkman. I mean, what's going on with I know everybody's kind of shut down the last year with this whole coronavirus thing, but is there anything cooking like
Tesla's not doing shit right now.
Yeah.
I mean, we're just, because we're scattered all over the country, for one. So we have to be in a room together to work. And we're not really allowed to be because of, by the time you go in quarantine and schedules and this, that, and the other. But, as soon as they give us a green light, we'll go back and start playing concerts again and make another record again, just like normal.
That's going to be great. Is this a good time to maybe get back to Soul Mode if you can? I mean, you and Darren.
Well, I am.
Yeah.
I've got some new Soul Motor stuff coming out real soon.
Oh, that's going to be great.
I just finished about, 20 songs. So there's, a lot of new Soul Motor stuff I'm going to put out. I just got to figure out if I'm going to put it out as an album or just put a single out every other week for the next year, because I have enough material to do so.
Well, I'm looking forward to hearing that, new Tesla and everything else. I can't wait to see you guys again. It's been a while since I've seen you guys live, so I'm looking forward to that happening. Hopefully this year, and we'll see what happens. It's not looking too promising already, but we'll see what happens.
All right, my man.
All right, Brian, it was great talking to you, buddy. You have a great day and have a great New Year.
Yeah, take care. God bless.
You too, buddy. Bye-bye.